Locate me a pilot, anything with engines. Colonel Barrett snarled, pointing to red-strewn maps. One unit stuck with no sign of a backup. AA staff member spoke out discreetly. We have one. An A-10 pilot is waiting and ready, he sneered. A perfect score. It's an artifact. However, less after 3 minutes, there was a heavy rumbling. Overhead, the engine tore. A Warthog cutting so low that the glass trembled. Barrett immediately stood up. Who the why is that hog flying? The Scene Joint Support Base Ashland, Alpha 3. WASP trapped in the K3 insurgent zone. Reports verified hostile fire rapidly approaching. Assistance postponed due to disruptions in Theridio waves. Colonel Barrett yelled once more, "Just jets. Get someone in the air and arrive them here before the age of 15. The employers rattled off possibilities. F-35s were grounded. The midge fuel of the F-18. A less senior officer added warily, "There's a pilot just flying an A-10C. She's outside the zone." "She's ready," Barrett said, shaking his. "I'm not requesting a flying bulldozer. Give me jets." However, all of a sudden, Satella sent a warning message. It was an A-10 arriving in the direction of Zone K3. No clearance, no orders. Who approved? That launch? One, the officer inquired. The answer was prompt. Nobody. She only heard the commotion and took off. The operations room was alive with discomfort. Barrett grabbed the microphone. "Unknown A-10. Present your identification and go back to the base. It's an order." The communications officer lost it. Frequencies .K3 airspace with an A-10. "Are you a reader?" "Additional quit." "The radar." Technician then raised his head, although she is flying in silence. Her headings focused on the last known position of the soldiers. Barrett hit the table with his palm. "She is violating all of our rules. Obtained." "Who is she?" The assistant's technician examined the logs. Raven 13 call signs. "However, sir, nobody is working under that name." Barrett leaned closer. "What do you mean nobody?" "After all, Raven 13 was eliminated from every roster." "Retired," she said. "It was a senior." Officer looking up was shut down following Operation Horst. 3 years ago, the room fell silent. The radar continued to hum, indicating that solitary A-10 encroaching. Barrett gazed toward Pool. "All of our resources on Raven.13. That file is sealed, sir. Doesn't matter if I have it buried beneath the Pentagon, a renegade pilot in a combat zone. I'd like responses." The radio crackled at that moment. "Any Alpha 3. Here. Station. We're pinned down under intense fire, in need of air cover support is coming in. This is base. We won't hold. But how long?" Prior to a response, a distinct woman's voice emerged. "Alpha 3, Raven 13. I can see where you are." Barrett leaned into the microphone as the room froze. "You're not cleared for this. Raven 13. Op," he told. "Her to get back to base." Alpha's voice returned, composed and concentrated. 3 needs assistance, and I'm here to provide it. That's a straight command. Raven 13. RTBA beat went by now. Colonel, with those soldiers don't have the time to show respect. Silence. Wait for the red tape. And then Alpha 3's voice came back, cracked and tight. "Please, any air at all." "We're out of." Barrett gazed at the radar for a moment before the microphone. "After a protracted silence, you can now engage. Raven 13. No response was received. She had already begun to run. I ceased to wait for orders the day I was too patient. Ann losed everyone before giving thanks, stated the A-10 came in low. In Bruce and Grotter at 300 feet, slowly moving forward, the distinctive silhouette of a flying tank. Troops on the ground yelled, "That's a Warthog." "We have air," said Colonel Barrett, read the label and scurried to the screen. Raven 13. There is no unit-linked internal communications. Her voice was heard. Raven 13 is on station.com and focused. Mark targets. Turn off the lasers. "And I'm leaving. Image," the coordinating technician shouted back. "Analog aiming? What?" "Nobody in this type of fog flies can see." A mutter was made, however. The subsequent sound hushed skepticism. A Go-8's thunder, the cannon ripped through the air. 3 enemy artillery nests later, infantry applauded as the fire burst out. Someone provided precision air support. "Who is she?" As she backed away, Alpha 3 heard Raven 13's voice over the net. "Will endure," as they left the airspace. They rushed to maintain. She cut the channel before making contact, but a name could be given to anyone. The operations room sat motionless. As the weight of it set in, a less experienced analyst murmured, "Did she simply use visuals to create the ideal cast? Aim in conditions that are almost blind?" The radar technician bent closer. It was a different flying path. Huggith ridges remained, behind the shadow of the terrain, and entered by a vector that proved effect target placement. Barrett made themic once more. "Enter Raven 13. We require Raven 13. Your debrief." No response. "That's a direct order. Go back to the base." Dead air now, followed by Alpha 3. Repaired once more, voices trembling with relief. "Alpha 3 is here. Base. I've never seen that pilot before?" "Artillery is gone. Can you confirm that you have seen the identical cast?" someone inquired. 3 concealed firearms emplacements removed without damage. Much missed. No blue on blue. And everything with we have our own systems without target locks. Not even able to obtain a tech officer, she only fired 60 shots after digging inside the logs. 60. Heads twisted after rounds from the Go-8. Most would burn 3 times. Someone repeated that to achieve the same result, Barrett had tow his staff. How on earth is that possibly possible? Could that be? An older voice interrupted. From an A-10 driver. "Who turned a advisor?" "That level of accuracy, sir? That takes years of experience in addition to competence. Flying in a situation where a miss was impossible?" Barrett said. "What do you mean?" Silently, the man murmured. "Whoever Raven 13 specifically, she has flown where?" Each shot had 2 count. No retries, no margin. The communication tech made another attempt. "Are you Raven 13? Reading kindly reply. We simply wish to express gratitude, but nothing happens." Then Alpha 3 cut in once again. "Base, we're on the move. Now let's move on to the evac point. I wish to mention that the pilot saved all 12 of Colonel Barrett. Fell back in his seat. 12 troops are still alive." Someone I told him no. A-10s. But he disregarded my orders. Whispered. "I was explicit. I wanted," Barrett mumbled. "Jets. Nothing else." If he didn't finish, but she had listened, was not required to. A junior officer cautiously approached. "Colonel, where should we report the illegal operation?" Gazed at the screen displaying Alpha 3. Relocating securely. "What?" "That someone perfect. Cast flew without us, op, and rescued 12 men." "Yes, procedure," muttered Barrett icily. Alpha 3 would have remained in protocol. Fragments as we awaited the appropriator purport. The room fell silent once more. The radar technician then entered. "Sir, a tense reamed from our scopes. She's entirely now out of reach. Any information on her?" "Heading?" "She went under the radar, sir, and disappeared into the hills." Bird turned to face the officer who had initially said Raven 13. "You mentioned her. Call sign was retired following Horst. What precisely transpired, sir?" "Horst." The man paused, saying, "Sir, I'd need clearance. Restrictions on files are then attained." "Clearance," Barrett stated bluntly. "That procedure." "I don't give a damn. Someone simply 12 soldiers were saved. Who is it? And the reason she isn't listed." As they started to examine the files that were sealed, Alpha, the last communication from 3, arrived. "Base Alpha 3 is here, and we've reached an extraction. We owe Raven our life." Leaning into the microphone. "Welcome back, Alpha 3. One final base thing. The manner in which she flew, the manner in which she struck. Those objectives, the air support, wasn't typical." "What do?" Barrett inquired. "You mean the speaker said this person has done night previously?" "Where it wasn't close in Nugadiquate. I'm not on the list for today's task as well. However, I fly since after I waited, but nobody arrived. Following their skew, Barrett mandated a thorough investigation. No one had Raven 13 on the list, so who? Is she, however, an elderly technician abrupt lyricaled. Raven 13 used to belong to a pilot who was removed from active duty. They dug up the records following Horist. Name: A-10 pilot Samantha. Was outfitted for leading her squadron. Across an area where GPS and communications have 18 men were fried by hostile jammers rescued. But she had started without clearance. Therefore she was grounded, disappeared, and was never logged in again. Another flight. According to one technician, she'd parted with a last statement: "As long as someone down there is in need of assistance, therefore, I'll continue flying." Barrett remained silent. He then issued his command, placing Raven 13 back on the list of emergencies. Nextant, judge a pilot by their tail this time. Number, the technician continued scanning. There's more about Horist. Colonel, proceed. Barrett leaned closer and added, ahead. That opportunity was doomed from the start. Deployed a mixed squadron because of poor Barrett squinted at the information. The type of information. The reports overlooked one attempt, the technician replied. The adversary had sophisticated SAMs. None of that was included in our briefings. They also had a lot off jamming. Radios and GPS stopped working at that point. A reserved senior officer spoke at last. Recall Horist. We lost 22 crew members and 6 birds in the beginning wave. The technician nodded grimly. Voss launched at that time. No orders. No, she traveled. Without a backup, no communications, no navigation, only images. Straight into the enemy airspace. And she managed to locate all 18 survivors dispersed throughout 30 square kilometers of inhospitable terrain. Barrett drew closer, his gaze corrected. On the file? How did she manage to? She didn't rescue without communications, the text said. Organize it, sir, and she did. Barrett inquired, meaning. The senior chief flew the shield, the officer retorted. Became the target during the rescue. People were taken out by teams. She returned not once. Barrett said 17 distinct flights and 8 hours of flight repeatedly. Right into Sam's fire. The weight of it caused the room to become silent, calming everyone down. The technician selected up once again. She was hit during her most recent run. Awful. The engine is dying. The hydraulics are gone. She landed despite the nav wrecking. Rarely. An emergency was declared in a rural road 20 meters out. Jet failed to arrive. Did, stunned, Barrett looked up. Why? Was she placed on suspension? She broke, and the officer's tone became icy. Direct commands. Headquarters had stopped all further attempts, saying it was too risky. Was instructed not to try a rescue. He confirmed that command had ordered them to stand down. Declared those 18 to be lost. Barrett, even though she hung heavy, she flew. She flew. Nevertheless, he whispered and closed the file. What took place at the hearing? Scanning notes, the technician Waze instructed. Accept the criticism, continue flying, or support her choice, and bear released. What choice did she make? I won't apologize, they said, and I quote, for rescuing 18 individuals, if I understand. Out. Whatever the case may be. They then chopped her unrestrained. The same pilot who executed Thegriettis battle rescue we've witnessed in decades. A text message from the cum chimed, what about the ones she managed to save? 15 returned to duty, with 2 being medicalerated. 1 went on to teach. They all gave testimony. They petitioned each and every one of them. Did the brass fail to undo? It, Barrett inquired, and the policeman shook his head. The command stated that turning it around would set a bad example. Out. They created, he said, formal. Barrett got up and walked toward the window that faces the runway. She was expelled for saving lives. That sums it up, sir? The space was. Barrett pivoted once more. And now she's still soaring and out there. The technician nodded slowly by himself. The file subserved 17 unauthorized rescues in the previous 3 years. Everything occurred when official teams were instructed. 2 dispersed dangerous, Barrett repeated. 17 times someone received her assistance from a spectral A-10 request. Just showed up. No thanks. Completed the task and disappeared. Barrett confronted the group, displayed the pattern. Map struck the table. Notes and pins are already there, marked. The officer in charge of communications pointed at them. Each operation had a goal: cancellation. The timing? Inquired Barrett. In each instance, she arrived via plane within hours after or to disconnect the plug. Barrett followeth Map's line with his finger. It feels like she's being tapped as she absorbs it into our communications. As though she is listening for, we decide not to answer every call. That would imply that she is gaining access to protected military routes, one officer said. She used to have access, Barrett remarked, said perhaps she never lost it. With caution, the security analyst said, if the fact that she remains in those systems is a significant violation. Barrett faced. Him rescued, 67 individuals returned, and Zerutis. Additionally, you're concerned about encryption? The rules, Sir Alpha 3 was required by rule to wait and are we going to die while we're checking boxes. Would you rather? The room fell silent. Barrett ordered Raven to be reinstated 13. Only for emergency usage. It's not formally, however, she is not. In the system, sir. Then don't. The officer pushed. Just make it possible by logging it. How? Ensure that no one else is able to respond. A channel is left open, Justin, the event that the senior officer ultimately in it. A backup plan for when official assistance fails, Barrett said, exactly. And what if she's not interested in returning? The tech glanced down at the operations nap from Alpha 3's extraction was still illuminated. She returned already. We're just catching up, for the person launched nonetheless. According to some orders are addressed prior to their said. 3 days later, right before dawn, a single A-10 appeared through the mist at a 17. The auxiliary field. There was no pilot in the seat, only a one note. I'm not here to express gratitude, as evidence that they survived. Later, Alpha 3 mailed and engraved. Badge. Comparable to Raven 13, who was sighted before Radar did. Samantha Voss was never seen once more, but it's too hot in every zone for anyone else. A silent signal would flash everywhere. Raven 13 and close by. Field A7 was reached by Colonel Wu Zal Barrett's vehicle the same morning following rumors of aircraft. Landing without registration. The old Warthog was seated directly on Thestrip. No flight record, no clearance. It was sealed down by security, but Barrett waved them away. Take a step back. I have to notice it. He went to the A-10. Climbed, found the paper in the cockpit. He read it, then simply stood there, apiceful, reflective period. A maintenance and CO approached. Should we impound, sir, this thing? Barrett looked at the Ancientivis. In spite of its antiquity, it appeared Deechline conveyed a tale, and it was combat ready, sir. How are things? This bird's gleam compared to the majority of our fleet, she has been cared for by someone. Very serious. Do you know where it's been? It's no documentation, sir. But based on the adjustments, and it's been solo for years. I'd think... Barrett slowly circled the plane, eyeballs looking over. The whole. Strengthened armor, specialized avionics, anything changed by a little. Survival, not theory. Have you moved this plane, Sergeant? Behind security in Hangar 7, but Don Considor, it evidence, sir, and handle it similar to a reserve unit. Someone may require once more. News of the Ghost A-10 spread, swiftly around the base. Pilots started visiting, excited to see the plane that had accomplished the impossibly difficult. Check these mods, a pilot requested. Whoever is flying this is fully aware of what they're doing. It's that focus and Garys that have been completely rebuilt. This is elite labor. And have a look at the ammunition. Racks, someone else said. Configured for maximum yield, with no waste. An experienced Flown A-10s leaned in to examine every little thing. This isn't just maintenance, he whispered. How do you mean? This is personal. I mean, this jet was loved. By someone, this kenned off concern. Sincere, Colonel the following morning. Barrett came back with his badge, holding the one that Alpha 3 had dispatched. Place it in the cockpit. Exactly where a security guard had left the note, officer took over. We've had sighs. There is a visitor aboard the plane. Did you run it down at night? We tried, however. Whomever it is, they managed to get past every patrol. Barrett smiled slightly. Perhaps they are not intended to be discovered. Certain things function better, sir, when we stay out of the way. During the following few ground workers continued to observe the Warthog was always the same strange thing, pristine, constantly prepared for battle, yet no maintenance was ever logged by anyone. Daughter. She seems to receive service when no one is looking, a crew leader who reported it. I don't know, sir, but they're more familiar with these systems than we are. Barrett gave a silent order. Hangar 7 would remain safe, but regulations regarding flexible access after hours it didn't have to be said aloud. The bird flight was being maintained by someone, ready, and the base would allow it to occur. What is the term for this configuration? We call it insurance, the deputy inquired. In response, Barrett said, for when the system fails to appear. Comment. I would fly over on any given day for that A-10. If you think that trust must be earned above, not in bellow. A tiny metal plaque at base headquarters was mounted. It was only a silhouette with no name, of an A-10 cutting through the fog. Below Raven 13, a single line. It turned into tally quickly, and new flyers were silent liberift. Should someone request? Air and nod if someone responds. Raven 13 may have heard already. Additionally, if you see an old tucked away in a corner, away from any appear, keep it out of your hands. Yeah, one belongs to someone who arrives ahead of schedulado. The plaque became a representation of crews. Navasas would inquire. Veterans would respectfully and slowly explain it. Raven 13 was who? Someone who is aware of the need of saving Livisis more significant than checking boxes? Is Shy still in the air? Someone once asked. Sheetha, response was, when she's reckward. What started out as an informal act developed into something uncommon in military aviation. Activities whenever official channels said that the danger was too great. When Common made a final call to stand down, option was still available. Frequency, not officially logged, but in some way always answered. But there was never a call sign roster, but consistently present when Italied. A plane that no one said service, yet always armed in some form. Colonel Barrett is ready and fueled. Resigned after 2 years. At his, he said goodbye to a room full of lots. There will be times when the where is what's right when the instructions. Doesn't help? Differs from what is written. And when you do, his eyes will lock, he said. Onto the plaque for Raven 13. Keep in mind, the goal is not to adhere to the book, to return your people home. Occasionally, the outside the wire is where the main job is done, does not render it incorrect. Rather, it makes it essential. Following the farewell, a fresh note showed up in the cockpit of the A-10, and thank you for knowing a few things about Hangar 7. Signed simply, they are more important than protocol. R-13, the successor of Colonel Sarah. Chun Barrett, maintained the Raven 13 configuration. She repeated his response when questioned. About it words, not all skills are included in the typical model. But that doesn't imply they ought to be discarded. The Warthog flew for the following 3 years. 12 more missions. Every time it arrived, official teams were unable to. Every time it disappeared when the task was completed. The Raven 13. Plaque acquired a deeper significance. Among flyers, there were more than one pilot anymore. The concept was what mattered. That certain procedures are too important, to wait for approval. New hires were presented in front of the plaque. No remarks, only understanding and quiet. They weren't being accepted. Into a unit, were accepted into a commitment. What it takes to get people back home. Parked just off the record somewhere. That old A-10 maintained its sharpness. The person was still taking care of it. Someone who was aware that duty doesn't stop after the paperwork is signed. A few years later, a last sentence was included on the plaque. Only 8 words for those who go. To the skies when others do not. If this tale resonated with you, please remember to leave a comment. Subscribe this channel. Share the tales that never intended to vanish. True stories from actual individuals.